You know, for years there's been one moment in Avengers Endgame that just didn't sit right with some fans. The kind of thing that keeps you up at night if you're a detail-oriented person like us. It's the ending. We see Captain America, old and at peace, sitting on a bench instead of reappearing on the time machine platform. And the question everyone's been asking is, why? Why that bench? It seems like a small detail, but I think it's the most brilliantly hidden piece of storytelling in the entire movie. And the answer isn't just about emotion, it's about cold, hard math. The math of Pym particles. It's a theory that completely reshapes how we view Cap's finale, turning a beautiful moment into a logically airtight masterpiece. So, let's rewind for a second and set the scene, because the genius of this is in the setup, and we have to appreciate just how carefully the Russo brothers laid the groundwork for this. At the end of Endgame, after the dust has settled and Tony Stark has made the ultimate sacrifice, Steve Rogers has one last job, to return the Infinity Stones to the exact moments in time they were taken. This isn't just a courtesy, it's a surgical mission critical to the stability of the multiverse. Remember the Ancient One's warning? If even one stone isn't returned, that timeline branches off into a dark and chaotic future. So, armed with Mjolnir, a symbol of his worthiness and a case full of cosmic gems that hold the power of reality itself, he steps onto the quantum platform. Bruce Banner, Sam Wilson, and Bucky Barnes are there, watching the clock with a mix of hope and anxiety. They expect him to pop back into existence after just 5 seconds from their perspective. The timer hits 0 and the platform is empty. The silence is deafening. For a heart-stopping second, we think it's all gone wrong. Did he get lost? Was he trapped? Then Bucky, with that almost supernatural connection he has to Steve, glances to the side, and there he is. Not the super soldier we know, but an old man, silently waiting on a park bench, a lifetime of peace etched on his face. It's a beautiful, emotional punch, but for the sharp-eyed viewer, it's also a logistical puzzle. And the key to solving it isn't hidden in some cryptic code, it's in those little red vials we saw throughout the film. The entire time heist was built on a very limited, and therefore incredibly precious, resource, Pym particles. The movie goes out of its way, multiple times, to show us just how scarce they are. Remember Scott Lang's near panic attack when they're huddled around the table, counting how many they have left? It's played for laughs, but it's serious world building. Each vial allows for one round trip. One jump out, one jump back. That's it. There's no unlimited supply, no cosmic gas station where they can refill. This limitation is what makes the heist tense and plausible. So, when Steve volunteers for the cleanup mission, he isn't carrying a suitcase full of extra particles. He has a strictly calculated amount, just enough to get the job done. And this is where we have to do a little accounting, because the devil and the brilliance of this theory is in the details. We have to go back to the 1970s, during that wild mission to the SHIELD base, where Steve and Tony had to sneak past his own father. To get home, they were forced to snag extra Pym particles. That incident gave Steve a small but crucial surplus. But when you really map out his journey returning the Space Stone to 1970, the Mind and Time Stones to 2012 New York, the Reality Stone to 2013 Asgard, the Power Stone to 2014 Morag, and finally, the most complicated of all, the Soul Stone to Vormir, the math gets incredibly, razor-thinly tight. He's making multiple jumps across time and space, each one consuming a precious resource. By the time he places the last stone, the numbers strongly suggest he's down to his final particle. He's standing at a crossroads in the time stream with one single jump left in his pocket. And that's where the official mission ends, and Steve Rogers' personal, decades-long story finally begins. For his entire life, Steve Rogers has been defined by sacrifice. From jumping on that fake grenade in basic training to crashing the Valkyrie into the ice, his first and only instinct has always been to give himself up for the greater good. He never once chose the easy path, never once chose himself. But here, at the end of all things, having just helped save the entire universe, he's faced with a choice that's just for him, a choice nobody else can make. He can use that last Pym particle to jump back to the platform, to the life of a soldier, to the heavy mantle of Captain America and all the duty it entails. Or he can use it to go to Peggy, to finally have that dance, and for the first time in a century of life, Steve chooses himself. He chooses love. This single decision explains everything about that final scene. He doesn't reappear on the platform because he can't. He has no particles left for a return trip. The fuel gauge is on empty. Instead, he lives a full, complete life with Peggy Carter in a branched timeline, and he only returns to that spot by the lake when natural time, decades of it, years filled with the simple, beautiful mundanity of a life he thought he lost, catches up to the precise moment his friends are waiting. He didn't quantum leap back, he lived his way back. And honestly, if you're finding this breakdown as fascinating as I do, if you love peeling back the layers of these stories we all cherish, well, you're our kind of people. Consider sticking around and even hitting that subscribe button and ringing the bell. It's the best way to make sure you have a direct quantum link to all our future deep dives, and it honestly helps us out a ton, giving us the PIM particles we need to keep exploring these narratives. Okay, suit up, let's jump back into the timeline. The filmmakers deliberately left Steve's return off-screen for a very specific reason, and it's not just for dramatic effect. If they wanted him to come back via the machine, they would have shown it. They showed us Hulk, Thor, and even Nebula doing it without any issue. But by having him already there on the bench, they're giving us a massive unspoken clue. It's a narrative choice that signals a fundamental shift in how Steve is returning. It's not a scientific re-entry, it's a natural arrival, and notice who sees him first, Bucky. That's absolutely no accident. Bucky Barnes knows Steve better than anyone alive, their friendship forged in a pre-war Brooklyn and tempered in the fires of countless battles. He doesn't panic or look confused when the platform is empty, he just turns, almost like he was expecting it, like he knew exactly where to look. That little, almost imperceptible nod he gives Sam says more than any line of dialogue could. I know what he did, and it's okay, go on. It's a silent acknowledgement between two brothers in arms that Steve has finally earned his peace after a lifetime of war. It's one of the most beautifully understated moments in the entire MCU, a testament to the power of showing, not telling. Let's talk about that journey for a second, because some of those returns were far from simple mail delivery jobs. They were perilous and deeply symbolic. Imagine for a moment returning the Soul Stone to Vormir. This isn't like dropping off a package at the post office. This thing required a sacrifice, a soul for a soul, a permanent tragic loss. Natasha Romanoff, a founding Avenger, died for it. So how do you even give it back? What is the protocol? Does Red Skull just take it with a solemn nod? Is there a ceremony? And speaking of Red Skull, imagine the sheer, staggering poetry of that moment for Steve. His first major enemy, the ghost of his World War II past, the embodiment of the hatred he fought to stop, now the eternal guardian of the very stone Steve has to return. It's a reckoning that happens entirely off-screen, but we can feel its weight. He has to face the man who represented everything he fought against, not with fists and shield, but with an act of cosmic restoration. Each stop on his tour to time was fraught with its own unique perils and paradoxes, sneaking into Asgard, avoiding the Ravagers on Morag, each one chipping away at his limited supply of particles, each one bringing him closer to that final personal choice. This leads to a question some of you might be asking, and it's a fair one. Couldn't Steve just get more Pym particles from Hank Pym in the past? It's a logical thought, but it goes against the very core of who Steve Rogers is. His mission, as sanctioned by the Ancient One, was one of strict restoration, not alteration. His job was to be a cosmic librarian, putting books back on the shelves without disturbing anything else. Taking more particles would mean tampering with a timeline beyond the scope of his duty, potentially creating new branches, new problems. He's a man of honor, a man who follows the rules when they are just. He wouldn't abuse the profound responsibility the Ancient One entrusted him with. So, when he finishes his job with one particle left, he respects the rules of the universe. He doesn't look for loopholes or cheat codes, and in that strict adherence to duty, he finds his moment of unexpected freedom. That last jump isn't for the mission, it's for him. It's the universe's way of giving him a reward for a job perfectly done. The sheer beauty of this whole narrative is that the film never, ever spells it out. There's no scene of Steve sitting down with Sam and Bucky beforehand explaining the particle math. There's no wink to the camera. It trusts us, the audience, to be smart, to put the pieces together. Marvel gave us all the clues. Scott's panic over the limited supply, the precise rules of time travel established by Bruce Banner, the emotional weight of Steve's arc, and then they let us connect the dots ourselves. It's storytelling that respects our intelligence, that rewards us for paying attention. When we see old Steve on the bench, we're meant to feel the completion of his character on an emotional level, but if we look closer, we can also understand the mechanics of it. It's the perfect blend of heart and logic, a signature of the best MCU moments. And let's really look at Steve's demeanor in that scene. He doesn't look lost or surprised to be there. He doesn't seem disoriented by time travel. He looks calm, settled, like a man who knew exactly when and where to be. Having lived a full life with Peggy, he would have kept track of history. He would have known about the blip, about the battle against Thanos, and he would have been able to calculate, roughly, when the platform was built and when his friends would be waiting for him to return from his 5-second mission. He didn't accidentally stumble onto that bench, he planned it. He chose that spot. He wanted to be there, on his own terms, to pass the shield. This wasn't a chaotic time travel accident, it was a carefully chosen endpoint, the final destination of a long and well-lived life. This also profoundly reframes the entire meaning of the shield handoff. By appearing on the bench, aged and ordinary, Steve visually separates himself from the superhero life. The transfer isn't a spectacle of flashing lights and quantum energy, it's an intimate human moment between friends. He's not Captain America, the living legend, handing off a weapon to a successor. He's Steve Rogers, the man, passing a legacy to someone he trusts to carry it forward with the same heart and integrity. This also creates a beautiful and intentional contrast with Tony Stark's ending, and it's a contrast that makes both conclusions more powerful. Tony's arc was about moving from a place of ego and self-interest to ultimate selflessness, culminating in the final sacrifice. He gave his life to save the universe. Steve's arc is the mirror image. It was about moving from a lifetime of selflessness to finally, graciously granting himself a personal happiness. Both endings are about achieving a kind of balance, and together they form the powerful, emotional core of Endgame. Steve's choice isn't a betrayal of duty, it's the fulfillment of his humanity. After saving the universe multiple times over, after losing nearly everything, didn't he deserve to have that dance with Peggy? The answer the film gives us is a resounding and beautiful yes. This theory also seamlessly opens the door to the multiverse saga, something the MCU is now fully exploring. By choosing to stay with Peggy, Steve consciously created a branch timeline. He lived a life in a reality where he wasn't there for the Battle of New York or the rise of Hydra within S.H.I.E.L.D. He had to trust that the world would be okay without him, that other heroes would rise. That, in itself, is a huge revolutionary step for a man who always felt he had to be the one to stand up, who famously said, "I can do this all day." He allowed himself to be happy, to be ordinary, even if it meant being absent from history as we know it. And the fact that he reappears, old in content, in the main timeline suggests that these branches might be more connected than we think, perhaps even converging at certain nexus points, which is a fascinating concept that feeds directly into stories like Loki with the TVA and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Think about the bench itself. It's such a simple, mundane, almost boring object. It's not a throne, not a battlefield, not a monument. It's a place of rest, of reflection, where ordinary people sit to watch the world go by. For a man who is always running, always fighting, always standing tall, finally sitting down is the most powerful statement he could make. He's not, "I can do this all day," Steve anymore. He's a man who has done it all for a very long day and is finally, gracefully, allowing himself to stop. It's a surrender to time itself. The Avengers fought gods and titans to control time to reverse the snap, but in the end, Steve embraced time's passage. He let himself age, let the years pass, and found profound peace in that inevitability. It's a deeply human and deeply moving conclusion. And what about Bucky? This is a crucial point. People often wonder why Steve didn't give the shield to him first. After all, Bucky was his oldest friend, a fellow super soldier, the logical choice by many metrics. But that's precisely why Steve didn't. Bucky had carried enough weight, enough pain, and enough darkness for 10 lifetimes. The Winter Soldier program stripped him of his agency and his past. Giving him the shield, with all its immense symbolic weight, would have been another burden, another expectation to be a symbol. It would have been a continuation of his trauma. By giving it to Sam Wilson, Steve gave both of his best friends a gift. To Sam, he gave the challenge and the honor of carrying the mantle of Captain America, a role Sam's humility and goodness make him perfect for. And to Bucky, he gave the even greater gift of freedom, the freedom from ever having to carry that particular burden again. Bucky's calm, knowing acceptance in that moment shows he understood this completely. He wasn't passed over, he was set free. So, when we put all these pieces together, the full magnificent picture comes into sharp focus. Steve Rogers, the man out of time, used his last Pym particle not for the mission, but for himself. He couldn't return via the platform because he was simply out of fuel, his mission complete. He then lived a whole rich life in a branched reality, a life he was denied the first time around, and when that life reached its natural conclusion, he was there, on the bench, having arrived the long way round, not through science, but through the simple, relentless passage of time. The shield he gave to Sam wasn't just a vibranium weapon. It was a symbol that the future was now in someone else's hands, that the world could and would be protected by a new generation. It was the perfect ending, logically sound, emotionally resonant, and deeply, profoundly human. It wasn't a plot hole, it was the entire point. Steve Rogers, the man who always followed the rules, used his very last jump to finally, triumphantly write his own. And in doing so, he gave us, the audience, something rare, the closure of seeing a true hero not just save the world, but finally save himself. He got his dance, and we got to see that even the strongest among us deserve to rest.